Looks like the Marine that was, visiting the Philippines for a little bit is actually being released after 6 years. Let's talk about this. What is up, guys? You're tuning into Nikki MGTV for another video. As always, you can always hit me up on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, or down in the comments below if you have questions. Also, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe so you guys can come back for more daily videos where I talk about news stuff, topics of conversation, hot topics, whatever else that is related. But anyway, let's dive into this because this has been a hot button topic, not for the U.S., but for the Philippines. And it looks like the Marine is Lance Corporal Pemberton, that is of Massachusetts, also stationed out of Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. Yeah, you guys can say raw already. We get it. But anyway, going back to this has been since 2014 October timeframe, and there is a lot of news about this because the president of the Philippines actually fully pardoned him. This guy got arrested because he thought that it was a girl, was a guy, and then took their life supposedly or allegedly, or I don't know if they actually convicted or if he said he was innocent or guilty or not. But that's the story we'll go with. Found her at the toilet, and then pretty much at that point put the blame on him because he was the last person with her. So there's a lot of uproar about this. And if you guys don't know, the president of the Philippines is Duterte. I think that's how you say it exactly. But he has been very controversial since he's taken office.
Papatayin kita.
At the age of 16, may pinatay na ako. Tao talaga.
Pag-graduate na lang kami sa Sandido, may binaril ang mga tao.
No, nagalit ako kasi ni-rape? Oo, isa rin yun. Pero napakaganda. Dapat ang mayor muna ang mauna. Merry Christmas. Kayong mga durugista, magdanakaw, mga korap, mga kriminal, at yung nagpapahirap sa Pilipino. Kaya kung ayaw ninyong minto at patuloy pa rin ang karasan, ito na ang huli ninyong Merry Christmas.
Now, this is all stemmed from the fact that he has served 6 of the 10 years that he was supposed to serve. He had good conduct time, which was proved or known that he didn't cause any issues or trouble, and they were not going to release him just by public opinion. However, the president stepped in to pardon him because he saw it as being unfair. Now, if you guys don't know anything about fair, unfair with the president of the Philippines there, he has been very all over the place with everything. When he first took office, he was all against the war on drugs and things like that, and is cracking down hard, actually taking out as many people as he could. You can also, on top of that, he has been very adamant about not being as reliant on the U.S. relations for military stuff. So,
Yung mga special forces, they have to go. They have to go in Mindanao. Maraming mga puti doon, they have to go.
Obviously, the Philippines is there. If you guys don't know geography, South China Sea, they're pretty dang close, and there's some threats that are happening over there with China. Now, what is interesting about this entire case is I'm actually a little bit involved in this case, not as far as him getting in trouble or anything, but I'll tell you guys in a second, of pretty much he was being held at a combined facility between the military of the U.S. and also the Philippines. Now, that makes sense because he probably was going to get killed if he was in Filipino prison. If you guys don't know how bad it can be in some of these other countries, not like the U.S. where you earn commissary, ability to have a phone at some point, TV, radio, all these other things that I get it. They're human beings. You got to rehab them. But at the same time, it's like you look at all these other prisons in other parts of the world where it's kind of crazy the level of differences between them. I was actually supposed to be tasked to go down there at one point to provide medical care at this facility, but that did get canked, and that was years ago at this point, but it was an interesting thing. So when I saw this, I was like, whoa, okay. The cool part is I would have been in Manila, obviously, not living in a tent or like barracks, that you would expect, but actually living pretty comfortably. And when I was looking at this even years ago at this aspect, I was like, we're still dealing with this? I couldn't believe it. You're talking about military assets being in Manila since 2014, 6 years that military assets have been over there. Also, it does not show that the U.S. government is going to provide any punishment to this, so I'm assuming that they're going to keep it as what it was in the Philippines and let that be their justice. Obviously, I'm going to assume he's out of the Marine Corps at this point, like they're going to just discharge him, call that the end of it, and he's not going to stay in anymore because I doubt he would like to after all these instances that he's had of between, going here for operations, being in prison, and now having to get get out, and probably not even wanting to do the Marine Corps or the military anymore at this time. Now, there is a lot of issues with this that the Filipino community is actually very upset about, and that is the fact they are thinking that this is due to their president believing that military relations are more important than human rights. And so that's why people are coming out and protesting this right now in Manila. And to give context to that military combined, issue that they're talking about, is we've had several military bases over there, Subic Bay being one of the main ones for Navy base, and then also Clark Air Force Base. I have personally been to Subic Bay and literally had a hotel that was the old barracks. It is pretty much a port town where realistically it is just a spot where people pull into port, and that's what drives the business around there. Nothing really much else to do. There's a couple safari things that you can do and things like that. But realistically, these places, once the U.S. military left, they're not thriving like they once were. We've just gone through this back and forth with the Philippines as far as providing aid, and also obviously being in South China Sea and doing training on their territory over there. So realistically, it's just one of those things like we've always had a little hand in regards to having exercises done there or having some type of relationship with the Philippines, and people are very critical of that right now, which is interesting because before, when their president had said that he did not want as many ties with the U.S., on the contrary, I think he had more people against him saying that they wanted the U.S. to be over there. That's obviously from U.S. media and more Western type media that was reporting on that, not Filipino news, from what I've seen. But going over this, my assessment of this is we couldn't stay there forever. The military resources that were being provided to this guy could not be there forever. You can't keep this guy locked up. And at one point, he was going to have to leave. And his term was 10 years. You do have to look at the fairness of it. They were supposed to let him go off on good time, which was obviously, that was within the rules. Even though people are mad about it, that was the rules from everything I'm reading on the several different news sources I've seen. I also want to bring up a little bit of critical thinking with this, and the fact that would the U.S. put this much time into all these assets, all these resources for the past 6 years to Manila for the possibility that he could be innocent? I'm looking at it from a common sense point of view. There has to be some level of doubt of whether he did or didn't, looking at this. So you have to consider that as well. Also, the rules, the laws, the culture of the Philippines is very different. So a lot of you guys are American, probably have never been to the Philippines. I've been to some of the more rural areas as well, or the province as people would call it. It is a very different country than the United States. And that's why I love when people try and make judgment. Even my small experiences from the Philippines do not give me total ability to understand it, even though I am with a Filipina as well. I mean, I still have a good grasp of Filipino culture, but I will say that, there is thoughts of corruption and things like that go with this. So there are a lot of people very upset. And my basic opinions or thoughts are kind of indifferent, because as long as both parties are okay with it, the U.S. government, the Philippine government, as long as they are actually kosher with this, that's what it's going to come down to. And as long as he has the power to do that, which he does, to pardon somebody. So that's why I'm like, he's exercising total legal authority to be able to do that. It may not be what you're looking for as far as social justice, but if the rules were that he could leave and you're not letting him leave, you're not letting the true proper justice system take effect. And I do believe that should be established. And I just want to give my background story of this so you guys understand, I'm coming to this with a very interesting perspective looking at the Philippines. I have been to the Philippines 3 different times before, twice for work, once for leisure. Also, I was supposed to go back before, actually 2 times before at this point, for different exercise things. So I was very familiar and comfortable doing that. I'm with Justine, who's Filipino. Also, I do have a very close family member that is actually with someone that is a Filipino that is I don't know if they identify as trans, but what I want to say is identifies as this other gender. So I'm very close with this story and kind of grasp it. I do want to say, if you guys are traveling around Thailand, Indonesia, Vietnam, Cambodia, Philippines, all these South Asia or Southeast Asia areas, you need to be careful when you visit for port visits. But who knows how this is going to turn out as far as if it's going to get crazier in the Philippines, especially Manila, their biggest city. We will see, and we'll just keep a close eye on that. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comments down below. Obviously, we're in port to have good times, but if you have your own stories or thoughts on this, I'd love to hear that. But as always, if you want, you can always hit me up on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, or down in the comments below. I love you guys. I'll see you next time.